last team, who has probably the most important free agency of all of them
Yeah.
because of all of the notable players who are potentially leaving them. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they have the best cap situation of any of them.
Yeah.
However, there are players like Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield, to name just a few for free agents. They can maneuver the cap a little bit. There are certain players that they can trade. If they trade Chris Godwin, they could save $20 million potentially.
Ooh.
Carlton Davis is another guy who could save $14 million. Or if they were to trade someone like Shaq Barrett, they could save some money. And then the biggest of all, which you'll probably see after the show is over, is cutting Russell Gage because they'll save $10 million if they do so.
Who paid Russell Gage $10 million to begin with?
I have no idea, but they should
Did he
be
play
fine.
last year?
No, he got injured in training camp. So he
Oh.
didn't play at all. That's why Baker roasted.
Oh, CJ Gardner-Johnson, who was like, oh, he mentioned Russell Gage, and then Baker was like, oh, do you even watch film, bro?
Yeah, exactly. They can restructure a couple deals. If they don't want to trade Chris Godwin, they can restructure his deal and free up $14 million. They can restructure Tristan Wirf's deal and save $12 million. So the caps problem is not the issue for them at all. The question is, how can they address their impending free agents? Which I'll pull up their free agents in just a second. But what do you think the biggest important thing to do is for the Bucs this year?
Yeah, so for the Bucs this year, most important things to do. Agenda number 1, re-sign Baker Mayfield. You elevated Baker Mayfield's stock. This year were teams who, if they pulled their head out of the ass, Steelers would be looking at him. Teams like the This would be like teams like the Commanders, if they don't want to draft a quarterback and trade their first round pick. The Raiders are a team if they don't feel like they can get a quarterback in the draft. So there are some teams interested in Baker Mayfield. So agenda 1, re-sign Baker Mayfield. Agenda 2, fix your offensive line. It was pretty good last year, but can still be improved. And then after that, I would say re-signing Mike Evans and then just getting another running back in the draft to go along with Rachaad White. Just a complementary player where Rachaad White is your third down back. Really good in the pass game and out of the backfield, has some explosive plays, but we need just a thumper who can run it down the middle because that's not really Rachaad White's game. So if you can do your offensive line, re-sign Baker, and then fix your run game, and then just see what you can do in the draft to replace some of those players on defense, like if you have to trade Shaq Barrett. But I think you can trade Chris Godwin to clear up some cap space and replace him in the draft. But I think main thing is replacing or signing Baker Mayfield and then getting a good offensive line and another good running back.
Okay. Because I have the free agents here. The big notable ones, they're going to lose some players on defense, but they have Mike Evans, who we mentioned. Ryan Jensen, he's 33. He's probably gone. Devin White, I would let White walk at this point.
Yeah.
Levante David, he's a free agent. He's 34. Do they sign him for another year? Baker Mayfield, Antoine Winfield Jr., and then Chase Edmonds and Ryan Neal to round it out. But those are the big ones that stand out to me. Other than that, they're just depth players. For me, I would try to keep Levante David on a 1-year deal. Just bring him over. He's still very useful as well. Devin White, he can go somewhere else. Maybe a team like the Panthers can sign him.
Yeah, it's kind of whiny last year too.
Yeah, I don't think he's happy. Mike Evans, I'm not certain whether or not Mike Evans will stay in Tampa. I know there was rumblings that it might be his last year. If they're going to lose Mike Evans, I would keep Chris Godwin and restructure his deal and then go after someone in the draft or even sign somebody because I think you still have the cap to afford it. And then for running backs, there's plenty of good running backs available. If you really want to be the best team in that division, maybe you pursue someone like Derrick Henry on like a short 2-year, 3-year deal.
Yeah.
Bolster up the offensive line in the draft, not worry about the running back. And then their wide receivers, you can draft a wide receiver in the second or third round. They've been good at drafting wide receivers historically, so I trust their judgment there. They have a really nice tight end in K. Dotton. And so for them, I would focus on offensive line, keeping Baker, getting someone to replace Mike Evans to the best of their ability, and then start to rebuild the defense.
Yeah, I would say first round, you go probably linebacker. Get someone who can be to the level of a Levante David or Shaq Barrett, because that's pretty much your pass rusher. Then there are also the guys who are all over the run game. They're a huge part in them winning that Super Bowl. Start to replace it in the first round, and then second round, I look to receiver, and then third or fourth round, that's when you start looking at running backs. But definitely in the first round, I would go linebacker, someone who can be that pass rusher, Swiss Army knife, like a Levante David. But those are two really tough players to replace, especially when you could lose your entire linebacker. But you have Antoine Winfield back there, but he also got cooked by Jared Goff. So
And he's a free agent.
but like this year is the most important year for Tampa Bay for keeping it all together and seeing if this Baker Mayfield experience is actually going to work, because there's a chance you could sign Baker Mayfield to 35 million dollars here and then lose a couple key players in free agency. So it's really going to depend on their draft here in Tampa Bay, but overall, I'm pretty warm on them. I'll give them a solid 70% optimism right there with the Falcons depending on what they do at quarterback, but it's not like you were blowing teams out last year and you came on hot at the end of the season, but you were more of a product that you were in the worst division in football than anything. And you did win a playoff game to your credit, but you beat a very wounded and demoralized Philadelphia Eagles team to do it. And then you competed with Detroit a little bit, but they were able to roast your secondary.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I'm a little less optimistic about the Bucks just because of some of the key players they have to replace. Even if they can find a solid replacement for Mike Evans and Levante David potentially, I just think those guys bring more to the team than just their talent. And I think that I'm probably going to say about 50% for me. I'm about
Yeah.
50-50. It really depends on the moves that they make in free agency, the
Yeah.
draft, and how they pan out. I think that they are going to take maybe a slight step back next year, especially with some of them aging as well. I'm warmer on them than I am the Saints and Panthers, but on the Falcons, I think the Falcons have a better opportunity to get a lot better. Saints and Panthers are all the down at the bottom at like 0%, and then for the Saints, I'd probably put like 40%.